one world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's live broadcast. It is January 11th, 2013. And tonight, I actually have a special broadcast for you because I'm going to be doing 3 hours tonight. I'm going from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. The first 2 hours, we're going to be getting off the issue of gun control for a little bit. We've been talking about it almost every broadcast. Even if I veer off on something else, I constantly have to almost bring it up now and give a couple segments just to be able to keep putting the truth out there because of the amount of disinfo and crap coming out of certain networks and their commentators' mouths. So tonight, I'm going to do a third hour where I will talk about gun control. It's going to be a commercial-free third hour. So from midnight to 1, it's going to be commercial-free. I'm going to be playing some audio and I'm going to be giving you a ton of commentary and going over a ton of different things to counter all of the retarded anti-gun crap that's coming out from the mainstream media. But for a change of pace for the first 2 hours, I want to get into JFK. Now, you all know the JFK assassination is one of the, I guess, I don't want to say single it out as its own conspiracy, but it is. So we'll say that it's one of the bigger conspiracies that I focus on. And as of late, I've decided over the past couple months to try to do at least 1 or 2 broadcasts during the course of the month dedicated to putting out some facts about the JFK assassination. Because there are a lot of good broadcasts out there, but instead of me telling you, the listener, oh, you should go to listen to this or you should go listen to that, I can get all the facts and everything together for you and do it myself. This is something I've researched and I do know a tiny bit about. So I can't think of anybody else to join me in this little endeavor, okay? But the group of JFK researchers that I have brought on to this broadcast in the past. So one of them, I would say, is more of a trooper and more available than most of them. So you will be hearing from a specific individual more than most, and that would be Mr. Vince Palamara, who, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is patiently hanging out in the background. Vince, say hello and take
Hey, Popeye and everybody listening. Hey, great to be here. Third month in a row, November, December, now January of 2013.
Yep, and we're gonna keep doing this, Vince. We're gonna keep bringing up the JFK assassination like once a month, and you and I have talked about this off air. It needs to have. This is the 50th anniversary of it this year, so leading up to it, I'd like we're gonna keep bringing it like once a month, and we're gonna keep bringing some attention to certain different aspects of it and things that maybe people haven't focused on recently, or maybe people have never heard of before. And tonight's no different. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give Vince a big shout out and a big thank you for doing this, because this is something we talked about when I had him on a couple months ago back in November, and he stepped up to the plate, third broadcast with him, and I just want to give him a big thank you, because he takes time out of his night to come here and talk to us for 2 hours. Again, I don't pay him for coming on the broadcast, and he's not making any money off me. We're not hawking any wares or anything, although I will make him plug his coming book that's coming out sometime this year. We're going to get into, and I will make him plug it because I'm forcing him to bring it up. I told him off air he has to do it because he's writing a book. Why not plug it? I do that for people I consider my friends, and Vince is somebody I consider a friend and a very in-depth researcher. And if I respect his work and I think that it's correct, and that the stuff he brings forward is correct. And you know what I really like, by the way, is how when you talked about the last time you were on, how you had accidentally given the wrong name out during the Men Who Killed Kennedy or whatever, and you stepped up and right off the bat, right in the beginning, boom, took care of that. You said, yeah, I gave the wrong name out, here's the correct one, boom, and moved on. Now, see, for someone to be able to say, yeah, I accidentally said the wrong thing and correct himself and then continue to move on, that's professional. That's another reason I like Vince, because you're willing to admit, yeah, I made a mistake, but I accidentally said the wrong name. Big deal. It was, and then you covered it. And so I back you. I'll make you plug your book. In fact, before we move on, let's tell everybody, because I want to get into a few details. I want to get into a few things about the medical testimony from the doctors in Parkland, and that's going to take a little while. So before we get bogged down into that, because that's going to be one of the big things we focus on tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is the testimony from the doctors at Parkland to the wounds that Kennedy received, which are drastically different than what you've been told by the mainstream media and the Warren Commission. But first, I want to plug Vince's book and pick his brain for any other books that you might think people should pick up while they're out, because I know that you're just like me. You're all about people getting the physical evidence in their hands so that they can, as at their leisure, thumb through it, take notes, write in the margins and stuff. So plug your book and then give me your top 5 or top 10, if you have it, best books to start off with investigating the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The floor is yours, bro.
Sounds good, Popeye. Okay, just first things first. In the fall of this year, 2013, for the 50th anniversary, my book titled Survivor's Guilt, the Secret Service, and the Failure to Protect the President. Once again, that's Survivor's Guilt, the Secret Service, and the Failure to Protect the President. It's coming out on Trying Day, which is the same publishing company, Judith Baker, FBI agent Don Adams, E. Howard Hunt's son, St. John Hunt, and several other books. So I'm very proud and honored and humble about that. And I guess from there, and I'll remind people, through the year about the book online and on your show and whatnot. If I had to say like a top 5 or top 10 books, this is for everybody out there. They're all is like, there's hundreds of books, Vince, and there's thousands of articles, and online is just like quicksand. Where do I turn to? I mean, a lot of people say, I believe there was a conspiracy, Vince, but where do I start? Okay, this is said with all due respect to the legends out there, the late Harold Weisberg, people like David Lifton, William Mark Lane, and so on and so forth. But to bring us up to speed in the year 2013, the most up-to-date research, the best books, the things that can really like the bottom line evidence of conspiracy and cover-up. Here they are. Inside the Assassination Records Review Board, or just inside the ARRB, it's a 5-volume series by Douglas P. Horn, who's the chief of the medical evidence area for the government panel in the mid to late 90s. Because of Oliver Stone's movie, everyone wrote to the congressmen and senators and said, I want these files released. Well, this review board came out, and Doug Horn was part of the review board. Blockbuster, 5 volumes, warts and all. No book is perfect. There's a few few minor things, but 95% of them are just terrific on the medical level. It's the bottom line of, I don't want to hear theories, Vince. What's the factual underpinnings of conspiracy? You have to get the 5 volumes, especially 4 and 5. Second would be JFK and the Unspeakable by Jim Douglas. Fantastic book that reads like a novel, but a factual novel. Now, don't get me wrong, Douglas P. Horne's books are great. Oh, by the way, I'm in 4 and 5 too briefly. Actually 4 a little more than briefly, but I digress. But Jim Douglas's book is just a great overview of why Kennedy killed and why it matters today, 50 years later. It's not ancient history. It's still a current event in many respects, and Jim Douglas' book is great for that. So I would say those are the top 2, and then to go from there quickly, LBJ, The Mastermind of the JFK Assassination by Phil Nelson. By the way, this recently came out of Skyhorse Publishing. And not to digress again, but it seems like Skyhorse and Trine Day are the 2 great publishing houses that are really either doing God's work as far as reissuing classics or coming out with new works, too.
Only That's 2 that have the balls to print books like Judith's book, something written by E. Howard Hunt's son, St. John Hunt, something written by you, or even reprinting Fletcher Prouty's books. I mean, I don't see anybody else stepping up to the plate. I don't see these quote-unquote major publishing houses stepping up to the plate to give anybody this information. It's all these smaller publishing companies. So kudos to those guys.
What, Popeye? The books sell very well. In fact, Jesse Venture's American Conspiracy was a major bestseller, New York Times bestseller. Now with Skyhorse Publishing, and from there it just spawned, all these great books, reprints and new books. And the books do very well. I mean, it's more about, than if they're bestsellers or not, but just for what it's worth, there's a tremendous interest out there. I mean, online is on fire. It always has been as far as interest in the assassination and political intrigue and other conspiracies that are related and whatnot. But, these books I'm talking about have all been released just in the last few years. We're talking like basically 2008, 2009 to the present. So this is what I'm talking about new research. Me and Lee by Judith Baker. Fantastic book.
I would also recommend an oldie, at least one old one I would recommend by Penn Jones Jr.
Oh, The Forgive My Grief?
Yep.
Is that the one? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good book. I mean, it's old, but as I said to you off air before we came on live tonight, Penn Jones Jr., that old man had the powers that shouldn't be nailed down right from the beginning. He knew that this was garbage. One of his best articles ever written, and I reposted it on Federal Jack, is his missing, or it's the strange, I can't remember the exact title, it's like the strange deaths of witnesses or something like that. And when you read the article and you just start to read down the list, it's like, oh my God.
And he appears in the classic Rush to Judgment film by Mark Lane, too, and near the end, and he talks about some of the strange deaths like Lee Bowers and some other people. Yes, that's what he was basically quote-unquote known for, just, the average person who knew about him. He did tremendous work as far as, literally in Texas as a small publisher and whatnot, and he was a World War II vet, amazing man.
Yeah, I actually aired with the audio that you're talking about, that from the Mark Lane film. I aired that during in the end of November. I did 2 broadcasts where I did part 1 and part 2, where it was, I just played pretty much as much audio as I could fit into 2-hour broadcasts of all this, not even newer stuff, but testimony from witnesses and investigators and stuff going back to the 60s. And I played some of the interviews that Mark Lane did, and one of them was Penn Jones Jr. And you got to hear, obviously he's passed on now, but you got to sit here and listen to him. I was sitting there actually watching the video clip while the audio was playing. And he, even in that audio clip, you're right, he starts rattling off the names of all the people that died, and the mysterious how they died, and all there's just mysterious circumstances that all these people that just so happen to be connected to someone or something surrounding or directly connected to the assassination of President Kennedy, and all these people suddenly started dying in single car accidents and all this other mysterious crap.
Right. Yes. And as an aside, authors Craig Roberts and John Armstrong did a book. I forget the title of it right now, but it was in the late 90s, and they basically updated Penn Jones' list to include many other people that passed away in the 1980s, 1990s, and so on, to fill in the gaps and more information and whatnot. It's really good. To pick up where we left off as far as books, Mark Lane's latest JFK Assassination book, Last Word, really good summation of everything he did up to that point. The aforementioned Bond of Secrecy by St. John Hunt, a small little book, but wow, good things come in small packages, really good. Another one is From an Office Building with a High-Powered Rifle by former FBI agent Don Adams. Excuse me, that's the Joseph Miltier, the prophet of Florida.
The Miltier tapes. Played them too. Played the audio from them too. Yeah, man, I'm all over all of this. This stuff is that's another thing I'm working on getting. I've been talking to Chris over at Try and Day. I'm going to get Don on, and I'm looking to get St. John Hunt on too.
Great.
And their brains. I really want to pick Don Adams' brain. I mean, the Miltier tape, that's a smoking gun piece of evidence right there, but don't pay any attention to that. Don't pay any attention to that. Oswald acted alone. Lone gunman can't have anything more than that.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is that Joseph Miltier tapes were also aired briefly on the original episode of The Men Who Killed Kennedy that was shown for quite a few years. We got into this the last show, how those shows were suppressed. Luckily, part 1 and parts 1 through 6 are at least still available on DVD, even if they're not airing them. But that's another story.
That's okay. I've decided to step up the fight against the hiding of the evidence, at least especially when it comes to 9/11, JFK, and stuff. So on the back end of my server, I've been building a download section for everybody that is actually live. If anybody just goes to, I have to make the download page and get all the links up and everything. But if you type in federaljack.com/JFK and hit enter, go look and you'll all see what's there. It's a downloadable list of video clips and audio evidence and some PDFs and anything that I can get together with the JFK assassination, RFK's assassination, and what I call the assassination of JFK Jr. All three of them are in one spot. You can just go there and pick whatever you want from the title, click the link, and it'll ask you to download it. It's clean. There's no viruses. Go ahead and download it. It's either a video or an audio file, and then you'll have the evidence in your hands by yourself. And a lot of this is the evidence that I've been talking about. Penn Jones, some of this audio clips that I put together at the broadcast where I played them, they're all there. So people can just go to one spot and they can see these clips for themselves. And this stuff is the real deal. I mean, look, the JFK assassination, I know a lot of people go, oh, come on, get over it. It's been 50 years. No, that was a big, big linchpin in what's going on. Because if they had all been caught back then, we wouldn't be where we are now.
Right.
Nobody stepped up to the plate since then. All the presidents have been owned, wouldn't you say?
Right. Not only that, but, I mean, all the events that happened afterwards. I mean, not to make JFK out to be a saint in every sense of the word, but, my God, I mean, you're talking about would the Vietnam War have happened, okay? We wouldn't have had LBJ. Nixon was dead in the water. We wouldn't have had Ford. I mean, at least up to that point, and you talk about Carter was a reaction to Watergate. I mean, it's a whole... they talk about the old domino theory. Well, I say it was a domino theory when it came to what happened to politics. Wow. I mean, it was a tremendous seminal event. And when you realize it was a coup d'etat, and he was taken from us, not from a lone nut that, had no connection to anybody, but it was actually a conspiracy, and you see what it did, how it changed our country and, for that matter, the world, then you see how it's relevant to today, because people's disillusionment in government, that's where it began. And then obviously you get into, like I said, the aforementioned Vietnam War and other things and other people that rose up in politics. And you had people for decades hung around the corridors of power, like the Arlen Specter from the Warren Commission, and the aforementioned. Well,
yeah, look how much future politics was affected by his assassination. It's like the ripple. It's like dropping a stone in a pond, and the ripple goes across the pond, right? And it's felt all the way across. It affects everything, whether or not you see it.
And it's still a current event as far as in the publishing world. Wow. I mean, for better or for worse, I'm not saying, to put it mildly, some of these books are exactly literary works of genius, but the interest in President Kennedy and his assassination is tremendous. I mean, in no particular order, as far as credibility, but, Chris Matthews' book, Mimi Alford's book, Clint Hill's book, Bill O'Reilly's book, just right there. Huge, we're talking huge New York Times bestsellers, okay? And again, it's the interest is there. It's not a matter of, people always think there's been a lot of feeling by some people, at least in the community, that, it's going to come a day where people are going to roll their eyes and go, okay, enough already, it's old news. But sure, judging by the reaction in Hollywood, we'll get to that in a second, in the publishing world, and in, obviously, online, it's bigger than it's ever been. And to follow up about the Hollywood thing, I mean, you have at least 4 major movies coming out this year. You have Gerald Blaine's propaganda piece based on his book, The Kennedy Detail. You have Leonardo DiCaprio doing Legacy of Secrecy based on Lamar Waldron's book. You have the Tom Hanks Parkland movie. Then you have Bill O'Reilly doing his Lone Nut propaganda film, and that's just what we know about. So right there, and then you think you could hark back to 20 years ago, how big the Oliver Stone movie was. Always through the years, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and early 90s at that point, there were best-selling books. But for the power of a movie, a motion picture, how it actually got people to say, wow, I didn't know files were withheld until the year 2017 or 39, whatever you want to believe. And he went to the congressman that created the ARB, and that's where we got people like Jim Douglas and Douglas Horn and other people that have come out with these tremendous books because of all these millions of pages of documents that have come forward. So between the internet and the grassroots research community and all these millions of pages of documents have come forward, there's a lot of new information as well as the old information that's been highlighted again. It's not like the same old, the single bullet theory, yeah, there was a shot from the grassy knoll. So much more than that. I'm not saying that's not very important, it is, but there was so much more that's literally filled the gaps. These are academics and historians and really respected authors and researchers have come out with this, and it's very well, tremendously researched. I mean, talk about some of these people like Robert Dowd and these so-called esteemed historians. Some of these authors and researchers, their books are so tremendously documented, it makes their books look like middle school or high school books.
Well, look what the movie JFK, look what Oliver Stone's film did back when it came out in the 90s. That thing rocked. The people actually demanded a new investigation into it. They started screaming and yelling and say, "You've got to be kidding me. This is incredible." Can you imagine? You know what, Ventura, this would be great because I'm sure Ventura has some money from the films. I'm not saying he's a millionaire or anything, and I'm sure he knows Oliver Stone, right? So Ventura should get with Oliver Stone and buy the rights to JFK or rent them for 6 months, and right around November just put JFK back in the theaters like special release, the director's cut edition though, with all the stuff that they wouldn't let him air.
Titanic.
Right? All right, Vince, I'm going to cut us off because we got a break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. A lot of people say, like I was saying with Vince earlier, a lot of people say to me, Popeye, why do you constantly mention JFK? You bring it up. I even bring it up in conversation with people a lot, JFK assassination. And aside from the fact that we listed the Vietnam the Vietnam War and everything else, there's something I want people to realize as researchers now, as people that look into this, right? Truth seekers, whatever. You instantaneously get called a conspiracy theorist, right? Everybody says, my family calls me a conspiracy theorist or whatever, or the news or whoever. Yeah, of course they do. We're all crazy. Oh, okay. Well, does anybody know where that term was first used widely to describe people that looked into things like this? The JFK assassination. People like Mae Brussell, people like Mark Lane, they were the original conspiracy theorists. People like Penn Jones Jr. and all the rest. There's more people I'm forgetting. It's just off the top of my head right now. And if I forgot anybody, I mean no disrespect to anybody out there by any means that I might have forgotten. But that's where the term conspiracy theorist was widely used for the first time, and it was put into the lexicon. Was the JFK assassination? That's how it was, and that's important. It's really important because what happens now when you go, hey man, why are you pouring sodium fluoride into water? That's horrible. Why would you put fluoride? It's not really even sodium fluoride. It's fluorosilicic acid from the byproduct of the aluminum, the Alcoa aluminum plant. So why are we putting this garbage in the water? Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Really?
Oh, you're forgetting a couple other things too, Pop. I'd add on to your very good points here. What's the other thing in the lexicon now? There is no magic bullet. There is no magic solution. Or they'll say, oh, it's another one of your grassy knoll ideas.
Dude, I heard them say that the other day. Holy crap. Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, Vince and I didn't have this conversation off air. This is very fluid and natural. I'm glad you brought that up because I have that written down as a note to talk about. I saw that the other day. They said something, I don't remember, it was yesterday. It was a CNN clip, and they were talking about, I think it was the debt ceiling, and they said there's no silver bullet or there's no magic bullet solution. And I was like, huh? Why would you say there's no magic bullet solution? Like, why are you actually? And I was like, oh my God, they're taking certain terms. It's the 50th year anniversary this year, and they're taking certain terms out from the assassination that play into this official line of garbage that they're feeding everybody, and they're putting it out there in pop culture already ahead of the anniversary, dude. They're already prepping the field.
I've heard it several times, especially when the campaign was heating up with Mitt Romney versus President Obama a few months back. I heard about it several times. There is no magic bullet here. Come on, guys. And then they would say stuff about, this is one of your grassy knoll ideas. And then sometimes literally they would say, just like that old saying, oh, I stopped beating my wife, which President Nixon said infamously at one of his press conferences. They would also say, he did everything from this to killing Kennedy. And so they actually throw that out as actually, this is part of the lexicon now, for better or for worse now. That's actually a point of reference a lot of times in things that actually you would think are tangential or have no relation to the assassination. And obviously the whole thing about being conspiracy theory is now almost like a dirty word in certain circles, that, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, until you lay out all the other conspiracies in America, then look so quote-unquote crazy anymore. But the public's overwhelmingly in our corner. I mean, ever since basically the mid-late 60s onward, the public opinion polls have shown anywhere from the low end to 70%, the high end into like the early high 80s as far as the amount of people that believe and or know there was a conspiracy in the assassination of JFK. So it's definitely not a minority view. It's definitely the majority are with us. It's just a matter of people getting information and the right kind of information too. And those books that we mentioned earlier, I think, are really good, not the starting points, maybe even stopping points in a lot of respects as far as getting all the information out there, yeah. And like we were talking about before the break about the medical evidence, that's definitely an area that's very important as far as everybody's into, CSI and all those other, detective shows, and everybody knows about the medical evidence now, like an armchair detective, and there's no doubt, going beyond even about all the majority of witnesses that shot came from the grassy knoll and about the impossibility of the magic bullet. Well, the majority of Parkland doctors and nurses, and even ironically the Bethesda technicians, in the autopsy of Bethesda, Maryland, said that the back of President Kennedy's head was gone, which indicates a shot from the front because entries make small holes and exits make large holes. Then you get into the whole ball wax about how the back wound doesn't match up with the throat wound and how there was no point of exit for the back wound. So obviously he was also shot from the front, which many of them said that day. It's just incredible. Like, if you go to the original footage from November 22nd, WFAA, ABC especially, they're just matter-of-factly saying it. He was shot in the right temple. The bullet, came from the front. They're interviewing the Newmans, and they're just talking about how nonchalantly it came from up there on the mall, the knoll. And
wasn't it his press secretary, the one that was sitting there, and he said it was a simple matter of a and he's like, it's a simple matter of a shot to the brain, and he points to his temple, and he's poking himself in the temple with his finger. Like,
and he also said that came from Dr. Berkeley. Dr. Berkeley told me it was a simple matter of a bullet right through the head. So it wasn't like he was speculating out of nowhere. He got that from Dr. Berkeley, which was JFK's personal physician. He was there at Parkland and later at Bethesda during the autopsy. And Dr. Berkeley later stated to author Henry Hunter reasonable doubt that there was a conspiracy. Also said the same thing to the High Select Committee, but got cold feet when they wanted specifics from him. And also, I write a little footnote, during the 90s, because Dr. Berkeley had passed away in the early 80s, he wanted his surviving daughter, to turn over his papers, and she refused. So she refused to cooperate, so there's a lot of people saying, wow, that's amazing. Oh, and also during the JFK Library oral history in 1967, which was sealed for years, he didn't care to be quoted about the number of bullets that struck JFK. Now, if Oswald acted alone and we all need to get a life, wouldn't he just say, 2 bullets struck him from the rear. It was Lee Harvey Oswald. Let's talk about something else now. Well, why would he say that? I mean, again, and then the fact that he admitted there was a conspiracy and everything else, and what he told Matt killed him, like you were saying in that film. It's one thing to have a transcript. It's another thing, and it was shown on the Men Who Killed Kennedy after the first episode. You see Matt kill point right to his right temple, and it just spread like wildfire. ABC, NBC, CBS is talking about it. It's amazing, the original footage of a lot of events in history, but especially the JFK assassination. Even though it's black and white, it's video, and you see this stuff, and it's amazing. You see Gene Hill talking about, the shots come from the front, from the fence. It's amazing. You see these people that some people later on thought that, this is dubious. Did they really say this back when it really happened? And you go to the original video and you go, wow. They did. They said it. Look, this is amazing. And then what happened was they captured Lee Harvey Oswald, and then they had to backtrack. You even see some of the reports. Bob Watson, his name was from WFA. He says, originally the witnesses thought the shots came from here, pointing to a chalk map of Dealey Plaza. But now we know the shots came from the book depository. So he's even conceding there that the original reports were this, but now Lee Harvey Oswald was captured here. So it's amazing how you see how things change when Oswald was captured. And obviously Oswald is the first alleged assassin, to adamantly deny his deed. Through history, they're proud of it. They even wanted to die martyrs. It's, yes, I did this guy was no good. I didn't believe in his politics. He adamantly denied it the whole time. And even like a deathbed confession when Jack Ruby rubbed him off, which is another story in itself, 2 days later, there was literally a chance to get a deathbed confession from him, and he just shook his head. So even to literally the bitter end, he was denying it. Chance to clear your conscience, and he still wouldn't do it. But, hey, back to just an overview of the medical evidence. Yeah, I'm obviously well known for a lot of the Secret Service agents protecting President Kennedy that I interviewed and corresponded with. Well, as a side project in the late 90s, going through the 26 volumes of the Warren Commission, I got very curious about a lot of the Parkland doctors, and I was just amazed at how, in this cold transcript, they're saying that JFK, the cerebellum showing from the back of the head's gone, the bullet struck from the front of the neck. Well, one of my major coups, pardon the expression, was there's a doctor, Dr. William Zedlitz, Zedlitz, who was referenced very briefly in Volume 6 of the Warren Commission testimony, okay? But they spelled his name wrong and put an extra E in there, made it Zedlitz. Well, make a long story short, you will never find his name in any book, any assassination book, until the year 2000. James Fetzer quoting from my work. But here's what happened. I discovered him, and I found out, wow, they just had a typo in his name. He wrote to me and said, yes, Vince, the back of the head was gone. He was corroborating what all his colleagues said. But here was little old me in 1998, a quote-unquote amateur, who discovered online, wait, there's a William Zedlitz who's practicing in this place out in Plano, Texas. Wait a minute, that has to be him. It's just a typo. And I was the first person to ever contact him. He later spoke at the JFK Lancer Conference in 2003. And again, he was referenced briefly in Fetzer's book, Murder in Dealey Plaza. But it just took me from realizing it has to be him, and no other researcher ever contacted him. So again, even though I'm known for the Secret Service, that was definitely one of my big moments in the quote-unquote medical evidence. And it's amazing. He came out and agreed with his colleagues. The back of the head was gone, indicating a shot from the front. He didn't rain on and pray and said, no, Vince, the shot definitely came from the rear. It was Oswald. That's the thing that's amazing about a lot of this, is just when you delve into the primary witnesses, whether they're Dealey Plaza witnesses, the citizens or the people from Parkland or Bethesda at the autopsy or Secret Service agents, it's amazing how, on the one hand, they may think Oswald acted alone, but they'll say things that go against official history. With the Secret Service, it was that JFK never ordered them to do anything. And if you read, William Manchester's Death of the President and other official books, it makes it sound like JFK did have a rendezvous of death. He kind of set himself up, so to speak, by not wanting security and being reckless. Found out that wasn't true. With the Parkland doctors and the staff and also the people at Bethesda, when you Doug Horne's books, Inside the ARB, The Five Arms, crucial for this. You get to see it in black and white transcripts of all the interviews up to and including the 90s when these guys were subpoenaed. And you see incredible how it's like they're reading cue cards. Some of them are very belligerent and seem to want to agree with the Warren Commission, but then they come clean and they say, well, the occipital parietal area was missing. It's like, wait a minute. The ball game's over. The occipital parietal is gone. That's an exit wound. If JFK was shot from the rear, okay, and only the rear, there'd just be a little hole, an entry hole, and it'd be a large blowout in his face. You see the quote-unquote official autopsy photos. His face is intact. It makes no sense at all. And this is apart from exploding bullets and whether it was really quote-unquote Oswald's ammunition and whatnot.
I like that little side caveat that about the autopsy photos.
You're right.
and ladies and gentlemen, look, to understand some of the subtle nuances about a lot of this, one has to look at the missing three pieces of the men who killed Kennedy, part 7. You should watch 7, 8, and 9, all three of them. But if you watch part 7, everything that Vince is talking about will be backed up by the evidence that's presented in there, plus stuff that we haven't even brought up yet, like the bullet hole through the windshield and things like that.
Exactly, and to follow up on something, again, the people listening to the show are probably more and more like on our side, so to speak, but you're going to get skeptics. And one thing I will say is there's not crackpots and lunatics that are espousing these things. It's not theories, it's facts. You have people that the Kennedy family's attorney, Burke Marshall, famous attorney, well, he actually granted Drs. David Mantic and Gary Aguilar access to the autopsy photos and x-rays. What did they do when they killed these very sane gentlemen? There were tremendous reputations in the field. In fact, Dr. Mantic also has a Ph.D. in radiation oncology. They came out, and their findings were there's something wrong with the x-rays and photos, and JFK was definitely shot in the front. There was definitely a conspiracy. They had no axe to grind. They're making money in their fields. They don't have books of their own. They're not trying to strive for fame and fortune, which is another story that cracks me up. The grand majority of the people that are supposedly getting rich off the assassination are your Bill O'Reillys, your Gerald Posners, your Vincent Bugliosis, your Gerald Blaines, your William Manchesters, your Jim Bishops. What do they all, Norman Mailer, what do they all have in common? I'm sure I forgot some other names. They all believe Oswald acted alone. They're the ones who are making the mint. It's with a few rare exceptions, it's a grassroots thing. It's small publishers or no publishers at all. It's people that work for a living and do this a labor of love. They're not making money. They're not looking for fame. They have a quote-unquote life, but what happens, they find disturbing things. Just to hark back what I said in the last show, if the special agent in charge of the White House detail, if he wouldn't have told me what he told me in September of 1992, who knows what I probably maybe will never went down the path I did. Very small, long story short, you can reference that radio show from last time, but what it all began was I believed, based on books, I was in my mid-20s at the time, I was naive to a point, that President Kennedy, maybe he did have a rendezvous with death. Maybe he was reckless of his security, a part of whether there was a conspiracy or not. I thought, well, it's a damn shame that maybe JFK had it coming as far as being reckless of his security. Now, mind you, not that he deserved to be killed, especially in a conspiracy. Well, I broached the subject to Special Agent in Charge Gerald Bain, thinking he's going to just reiterate what the books say and rain on my parade, and that's the end of it, because I had no reason to doubt it. And that's when he told me, I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car. If you look at the newsreels, you'll see the agents on there. And again, like I said last time, after just unbelievable, this shock sound, I couldn't believe he said this. Well, then slowly through the days, weeks, months, and years, I got corroboration from so many of his esteemed colleagues. These are either a stranger on the phone or in the mail. It was all independent of each other. They're all like they're reading cue cards. Whether or not they believe there's a conspiracy, most of them didn't, but a few of them did, which is ironic. But the overwhelming thing that comes forward was that President Kennedy was a nice man, was very easy to protect, never interfered with their actions at all, did not order them off the car. This whole thing about the bubble pop was a convenient exaggeration. He didn't care about the motorcycles next to him. He didn't care about this whole thing about the trademark. Like they made everything they tried to pass, like the blame the victim, which you hear about a lot today. They were trying to blame the victim. that way the intelligence community, CIA, FBI, especially the Secret Service, can like breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, well, you know what, conspiracy or not, we're off the hook. The man told us to do this. That was the official story. But then when you realize, wait a minute, as an amateur, meaning me, back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I'm looking at films and photos, and I'm like cross-examining things in my own mind, and wait, this doesn't make any sense. JFK's really told the agents to get off the car in Tampa, but I'm seeing films and photos of the agents on the car. Wait, this doesn't make any sense. And I go to Berlin, I go to Ireland, I go to Hawaii, other trips. This doesn't make any sense. Why only Dallas? How convenient. And that's when it all happened. It's questioning things. It's just like the medical evidence. It's not like a minority of the Parkland doctors and nurses thought that JFK was shot from the front, but the vast majority believed otherwise. No. It's a landslide, just like the Secret Service agents, that whether they believed ironically there was a conspiracy. I got some funny letters. One of the doctors, Dr. Selden, believed Oswald acted alone, but they said that JFK was shot in the right temple and the occipital parietal was missing. Like, wait a minute, time out. That makes no sense. So Oswald was on the grassy knoll, but you got a stubborn, angry man who didn't want to be dealt with. Another one of these letters from these nincompoops. Come on, there's no conspiracy here. But he had to be truthful in what he said. It's like Clint Hill in his book tour, over and over and over again, he keeps saying the back of President Kennedy's head was gone when he saw it in the limousine a foot away, when he later on was brought down to the morgue and saw again. He said that there was a wound in the back, not the back of the neck, the back, and then obviously the back of the head was gone. He doesn't realize what a contradiction it is, just like Governor Connolly. For years, until he died in 1993, always said that, there was no conspiracy, but he didn't believe the single bullet theory. Everything's compartmentalized. It's all what anybody's view is. You got to keep in mind, these are loyal government.
I think some of these guys were afraid, to be quite honest with you, Vince, because Connolly is famous for his quote, and I will quote him, when they were getting shot, he screamed out, "My God, they are going to kill us all." The term they, by itself, would imply that there was more than one shooter, which would imply that there was, by definition, a conspiracy to kill the president, which actually is the one thing. You notice that's the basis that they fight every argument on, or any piece of evidence on. That's the basis they come back with. The people that toe the official line, they have to come back with there is no conspiracy, because if they let any one piece of evidence, and I said this the last time you were on, and when it was you, me, and Judith, if they let one tiny little piece of evidence, even one little thing, it could be something stupid like a deposit slip at a bank that would prove that somebody else knew that Oswald was doing something, right? And I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying it could be something mundane like that, and they have to attack it and say it does not prove anything. Because if there is any evidence that proves that Oswald did not act, now this is if you even believe that Oswald did it, okay? But let's say for a second that you buy the official story. If there's any evidence out there that says, well, maybe Oswald didn't act alone, you don't have to buy that Oswald was innocent, even though I've seen enough evidence to say that Lee was completely innocent and he didn't do it. Okay, and I'll say that until I go in the ground. But
I hear you. Same here.
Let's say that you buy the official version and you think Oswald did it. Now you start looking into this and you go, well, there's at least evidence that shows that maybe there was somebody else other than Oswald. It doesn't mean I think the government did it, but there could be maybe Oswald acted with somebody else. Don't you think we should hunt them down then and look for this person if there was somebody else other than Oswald?
Right.
Right?
Right. And then the good news is, we can definitely make the case for conspiracy, and people have done it in those books I mentioned earlier, especially. They've done a tremendous job in the Men Who Killed Kennedy series, warts and all. There's tremendous evidence and material that's presented. And JFK, the movie, you take away about 20-25% of it, and there's a lot there that's really solid. But then when you get down to maybe an indictment of specific assassins and that, then it gets murky. And I think that's why we're still, quote-unquote, on the trail of the assassins, to borrow Jim Garrison's book title, because we've come a long way when we did in the humble late 60s, early 70s with the knowledge we have at that point, Freedom of Information Act out of Harold Weisberg. It was hard to get documents out before the internet. Technology was so arcane back then compared to now, and there was only so many inroads you can get. You almost was stuck with the same old of, the buffet of evidence about, the grassy knoll and the single bolt theory and that. But you couldn't go much further than that. And the beautiful thing about the case, it's also frustrating.
Vince, I'm going to cut you off right there, and I'm going to make you hold that thought because we got a break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, every time Vince comes on, hour number 1 and hour number 2 fly by. But relax, only the first hour has gone by. Hour number 2 is coming up, so do not go anywhere. More with my guest, Vince Palamara, when we get back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. And joining me tonight for hour number 2, don't forget, there will be an hour number 3 tonight from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m., so stay tuned for hour number 3. But joining me for hour number 2 tonight is my good friend and JFK researcher and expert and author, coming author, I would say, because now his book is coming out this year, Mr. Vince Palamara. And Vince and I were discussing in hour 1, we were going over the medical evidence and a few other things about the assassination. And I had mentioned conspiracy theory. And I was about to say this off air with Vince, and I said, you know what, I'm going to wait until we get on air because this is a point I want to drive home. The reason, even the term conspiracy theory, remember I say I tell people it's misused all the time to label people? The term, it's used out of the context as a label. Well, it originated in the 60s with the original people who questioned the government's official story of the JFK assassination. They were called conspiracy theorists. You see, because, as I said in hour number 1, if you had, by definition, more than Oswald, the lone gunman, you had a conspiracy. So anybody that said that Oswald didn't do it was a conspiracy theorist. Someone realizing that there was more than one person involved in the assassination of the president. So the terminology that we know today is already, it's been twisted and misused where it came from even 50 years ago. Okay, so that's important to understand. All this stuff that we deal with today and we fight today, a lot of it stems back 50 years ago to when Jack got his noodle blown off in Dealey Plaza. Okay?
Yes.
And things have drastically changed, and it is important to point that out. Now, Vince, I want to go back. I know we might end up repeating a little bit of information for about 2 seconds here from the last time, but it's important to go back to the Secret Service again, because there's things that actually you're also gonna drop a little knowledge that a bombshell, as it were, that you haven't told yet on air. So I'll give you the floor, and I'll let you lead it where it may, because I know there's a few things with the Secret Service and then the bombshell. So you pick whatever you want to go to first.
Okay, yeah, I'll cut right to the chase here. A lot of people know William Greer, or Bill Greer, as he was called, the driver of JFK's limousine, many times on previous trips, but also obviously infamously in Dallas, November 22nd, 1963. Well, he passed away in 1985, and he only had one child, his son Richard. Well, I'm talking about how the call I made in 1992 kind of changed my life with the Special Agent in Charge Gerald Bain, but actually there was a phone call I made the year before that I'm forgetting, that I just remembered right now, that actually was probably even more of a seminal moment than that, if that's possible. So what happened was, I phoned Richard out of the blue. This is September of 1991, a year before, and after a couple of innocuous questions and just kind of getting to know each other on the phone a little bit, asked some very straightforward things, I just, out of nowhere, just asked him, well, what did your father think of JFK? He didn't say anything. I was like, okay, awkward pause, awkward silence. So I kind of went back to some innocuous things and went right back to it, although I think that's innocuous. Asked him again, Richard, what did your father think of JFK? He said, well, we're Methodists, and JFK was Catholic. And I was like, what the heck? And now this is where this is leading to. Bill Greer was born and raised in County Tyrone, Ireland, coming to America in February of 1930 when he was about 18, 19 years old. We all know about the fighting of the Protestants, the Catholics, and whatnot in Ireland. And to make that kind of bizarre statement, the first time he avoids it, the second time he says, well, we're Methodists. JFK was Catholic. Instead of just saying he was a wonderful man, my father thought highly of him, what you would expect. That really rings large when you look back at Greer's conduct, his actions and inactions that day. You know, you have 60 witnesses, okay, that saw the limousine either slow or stop. First shot rings out. Bill Greer hits the brakes, looks back once. The agent in charge in the car, assistant special in charge, Roy Kellerman, tells him, get out of line, we've been hit. He disobeys and looks back until Kennedy's hit in the head. Only then did he face forward, and then Roy Kellerman, in a footnote in Death of a President by William Manchester, Roy Kellerman says, Greer then looked in the back of the car. Maybe he didn't believe me. Unbelievable. And again, when you think about everything's the context of the times. It wasn't like Bill Greer was born in California. What does that mean? Well, he was born in County Tyrone, Ireland, and came to this country when he was like between 18 and 19. Oh, it gets even crazier. He worked one summer on the estate of Henry Cabot Lodge. Henry Cabot Lodge was a bitter JFK rival opponent. He was a Republican, also from Massachusetts, and was twice defeated by JFK, once for the Senate and also when Henry Cabot Lodge ran as Nixon's running mate in 1960. So before he even knew who President Kennedy, John F. Kennedy was, he's working one summer on the estate of Henry Cabot Lodge. And his son saying all these years later, well, we're Methodists and JFK was Catholic. Then you get to this, and I mentioned this on the last show, but I would say the number one thing, as far as messages and comments I got from the last appearance, a lot of people were really amazed that everyone knows about it. We're talking about the mysterious deaths in the case Penn Jones, we were talking about earlier. Well, there was actually someone that passed away a month before the assassination. It wasn't just some little old citizen or somebody from sort of arcane, twice removed sort of connection. This was Special Agent Thomas B. Shipman of the United States Secret Service. He was one of 3 drivers of the president. Okay, it was Sam Kinney, Tom Shipman, and Bill Greer. They traded off driving the presidential limousine or the president's Secret Service follow-up car. Thomas Shipman, I have pictures of him driving JFK up to late September of 1963 and many other trips, including with Eisenhower and Truman. Well, October 14th, 1963, here's a man in very good health. He's like about 48, 49. He dies of a heart attack up in Camp David. Sam Kinney, his friend, finds his body in one of the cabins up in Camp David. Now, this is all fact. This is like, oh, how can we know this is true? Go on the AFA USS, that's the former Secret Service agents' roll call of fallen officers. And what's amazing about Thomas Shipman is, between 1950 and 1968, he's the only agent to have passed away. He's one of the precious few agents that ever died in the line of duty. And he was one of JFK's drivers. And obviously it brings us back to Bill Greer. If fate would have had it, would have been Thomas B. Shipman and not Bill Greer. And this whole thing about dying of a heart attack at Camp David, a Secret Service agent, I mean, it's not exactly some roly-poly guy who had health issues. He looked pretty darn healthy to me. He didn't look any better or worse than the other agent when you see pictures of him in the photographs. He had to have a certain weight and training and whatnot. They were all trained with firearms. They weren't just sitting there like, oh, he's just the driver, Vince. That doesn't count. Oh, no. They had firearms training, and they went through the whole thing. They were just agent drivers. But you went on to other duties. I spoke to Ian Emmett, the author of Within Arm's Length. He drove President Clinton. He told me in no uncertain terms, just because he was a driver for part of his term doesn't mean anything. Vic Arabia.
Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah. That's like saying the driver if you're with a bunch of Marines and there's a Marine who's driving the Humvee. Oh, well, he's obviously not a trained Marine. He's wearing the uniform, but he's obviously not a trained Marine because he's just a driver. Yeah, because they go up the street and they're like, hey, you, dude, you're driving a taxi, right? You got experience driving. You want to just be our driver? Because they wouldn't use somebody who's trained and proficient in weapons to say, hey, you, stow your weapon, and drive the vehicle. It's not that hard.
Right. And to follow up on your point, too, George Hickey, who was another member of the quote-unquote drivers/garage detail, so to speak, of the Kennedy detail, well, he manned the AR-15 rifle in Dallas in the Fall car, and he rode on the Fall car during the Florida trip 4 days before. So these men, and Henry Ripka, another agent from that detail, also rode in the Fall car the day before Dallas. So, yes, your point's well taken, and Dan Emmett even reiterated this to me. And the current agent who protects Obama was part of this quote-unquote transportation detail, they call it now. These men interchange duties. So, again, it brings us back to the $64 million question. What an amazing coincidence that one of the president's drivers dies of a heart attack. Yes, I'm very skeptical. In Camp David, and then Bill Greer goes tremendous ineptitude, borders on treason. He didn't obey an order. I mean, just think if you have a loved one in the back. Let's just break it down into just common terms. Say it's a loved one in the back seat. God forbid. Okay, you hear a sound of a gunshot, and then you see distress. Do you even need someone to tell you to get out of line and hit the gas? Here's a trained Secret Service agent. And even people like Gerald Pauser and Vince Bugliosi have even conceded that he basically let the assassination happen. And they believed Oswald acted alone. So even from that camp, they were even conceding Bill Greer was the keystone of it all. And again, it gets back to Bill Shipman. Oh, by the way, like I said in the last broadcast, that came about totally the fluke. This is not common knowledge. And again, not to toot my own horn, it is what it is. It's like Bill Sedlitz. No one knew about him until I discovered him. No one knew about Tom Shipman until me. And those online roll calls I mentioned came about several years after I first discovered it. It was George McNally, who's part of the White House Communication Agency. He passed away in 1970. His widow in 1982 came out with his obscure book. Reed McNally's on my Facebook, of all people, his grandson. And it confirmed this was just a manuscript, and my grandma put it out there in just private publishing. So this wasn't even a book you can get at a bookstore. I got a hold of it, the AARC. I get the book, and there's a passage. The book had no index. And also, there's one of the president's drivers, Tom Shipman, died suddenly. And I'm like, what? And that's how I investigated, found out about him. Now you go on in these roll calls, and it shows that the guy passed away and who he was and the exact date and the location and whatnot. But it was just a fluke. And I have to look back and, wow, if it wasn't for that obscure manuscript, it wasn't for me pressing the issue, would anybody even know about Thomas Shipman? And then when I spoke to some of his surviving colleagues, they were really iffy about it. They didn't know the details. And one of them, Win Lawson, the lead advance agent for Dallas, told me, well, Sam Kenney would know more about that than I. He discovered the man's damn body up at Camp David. Now, why do you have to get touchy, Win Lawson? What's the big deal? If the gentleman did die of natural cause, why are you copying an attitude? Why can't you tell me more about Thomas Shipman? I mean, if you're telling me other things, why can't you tell me that?
I like how nobody thinks that it's like if you bring up the I guess you could say speculation. I was trying to think the right word here. We'll say if you speculate, right? If you speculate that he didn't die of just a heart attack, or he died of maybe the CIA's heart attack gun, which is on record that they have.
I'm skeptical. Let's put it that way. You're right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So if I maybe suggest that happened, right? Why is that such a crazy notion? I mean, where else would be a better place to do it? The guy's in a controlled environment at Camp David. There's no press around. There's nobody else around. He's there. They could have another agent just walk up and right to the back of the neck with whatever, or they could even shoot him with the heart attack gun. Again, people, go Google or just go on YouTube and look up CIA's heart attack gun. I'm not kidding. I know people are going to hear this in the rebroads later on. Get a piece of paper and a pad, right? Write this down. CIA's heart attack gun. In fact, go on federaljack.com. I have the video up there. Okay, type in, go into the search bar, in the little search bar right there at the top, and type in CIA's heart attack gun. You can look it up on YouTube, right. Google it. They've had the capabilities for over 30 years, 40 years to be able to deliver poison in ice encapsulated darts. It's a little ice dart. So if they can do that back then, imagine what they could do now. Is it really is it that much of a stretch of the imagination to think that this guy wasn't walking around at Camp David and they just went ping and that was it? You know too much, you got to go.
And the other thing, too, Paul, you just reminded me of something else. Thank you very much, because there actually was an addendum, something I forgot. I was kicking myself the last time I mentioned this in the last broadcast. This is from I'm calling it new information. This is an important addendum. The most amazing thing of all, and speaking of Google, anybody can do this and back this up. Go to Google News, custom range, put in any range you want. You can put in 1940 to 2013, anything your heart's desire. Look for Thomas Shipman. There is absolutely nothing, not one article mentioning his death. No official White House announcement was said to talk about the sorrow we feel for the death of esteemed colleague Thomas Shipman. There is not one mention from the White House or the press of this man's passing. That's another thing. It's crazy. And no one ever mentioned it in interviews to William Manchester. Nothing. It was only because of this guy's, George McNally's obscure, unpublished manuscript that his widow, 12 years later, published, and it's mentioned it in an under-indexed, out of context, out of nowhere. He says, Thomas Shipman, one of the drivers, suddenly passed away, and he talks about something else. That is amazing. There is an article talking about a Secret Service agent passing away. To give an example, Leslie Kofelt passed away. He was killed in the attempt on Truman. There's thousands of articles about Leslie Kofelt. He's very well known. In fact, he was the agent who died before Shipman in 1950. There was nobody till Shipman in 1963. Then there was an agent who died accidentally in 1968. Okay? Then you go up to some guys in the 70s. It's amazing how few. I think it's like 30 out of thousands of agents, only 34. I think that's the current number that passed away. Thomas Shipman's one of them. A month before Dallas, October 14th, 1963, Camp David. And a couple other things I got to throw out here, too. Gerald O'Rourke, and some people I was talking about before, that most of the agents believe Oswald acted alone. Several of them believed there was a conspiracy. One of them was Gerald O'Rourke, who was on the Texas trip, who's a colleague of Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy detail fame. He came out in 2003 in Colorado, an obscure article that made some press. It was reprinted a few times. We can't find it now. It's pretty hard to find. But he basically laid it out. JFK was definitely killed by a conspiracy, went into, standard single bullet theory, and how Ruby snuffed out Oswald was also a coup. Well, I talked to the gentleman and emailed him several times. Real nice guy, about 2005, 2006. Well, here's the point of it all. I brought up his last broadcast about this PRS agent, Howard Norton, who was in Austin waiting for Kennedy, and Kennedy never showed up because he was killed. Howard Norton was an intelligence agent who was on that trip just like Glenn Bennett. And those agents shouldn't have been here because ostensibly they're left behind in Washington, D.C. with their little wire-rimmed glasses looking for threats to the president. They're not on site. It's a rarity, to put it mildly, that they would even be on a trip. Well, there was no official acknowledgement that Howard Norton should have even been there. Well, anyway, when I spoke to Gerald O'Rourke, he said, yeah, give me a call anytime if you have any questions. I sent him an email and said, I want to talk about Howard Norton. Called the man up. This is an exact quote. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm afraid for my agency. And he hung up on me. And that was it for Gerald O'Rourke. Didn't want to talk about Howard Norton and didn't want to talk to me again. I'm afraid for my agency.
No, that's not shady. No,
yeah.
That's not shady. No, that doesn't raise a red flag in one's head and make someone go, You know what
and this is a guy who believed there was a conspiracy too.
You know what I'm saying? Like that, it's just when someone acts like that, and then people wonder why someone goes, "Well, gee, I wonder if there's more to the story." Oh, you're crazy! You're overreacting. It's not my overreaction that threw up the red flag, man.
Right, and another thing too, but Gerald O'Rourke. That's why there's so much the connections here. I mentioned about Glenn Bennett riding in the follow-up car. Well, to be fair, there was a team of researchers that discovered this before me back in the early 1970s, murdered from within. Fred Newcomb and Perry Adams wrote a pretty obscure book that Ty Newcomb came out with, reprinted it, thank God, a couple years ago. And again, it's called Murdered from Within. And he discovered that Glenn Bennett was a PRS agent. He was in Dallas. What's he doing there? And he basically left alone that. And I discovered some more things about Glenn Bennett. And yeah, here's what happened, okay? JFK's trip was canceled November 2nd. He was supposed to go to Chicago. It was canceled ostensibly because he had a cold. They made an excuse about Cuban Missile Crisis the year before. Glenn Bennett's all of a sudden temporarily assigned to the White House detail. He goes to the New York, Florida, and Texas trip. He lies to the House Select Committee, says he wasn't on the Florida trip when he was. The records prove he was there. Well, that Gerald O'Rourke I mentioned, he said, I don't want to do it, I'm afraid for my agency, mentioned to me in one of his emails before he didn't want to talk to me anymore, that Glenn Bennett was one of his dear friends. They worked in the intelligence division into the 1970s. And and when I spoke to some of these guys about Glenn Bennett and the aforementioned Howard Norton that I mentioned a few minutes ago, they were all coy with me. They didn't know what he was doing there. Gerald Blaine of Kennedy Detail fame told me it was kind of strange that Glenn Bennett was there, but he was just there because there was a manpower poll. But then you got Clint Hill in his last book, Mrs. Kennedy and Me, who says Glenn Bennett was there handling intelligence. Oh, really? Well, thanks, Clint, for the corroboration, but that goes against official history because your buddy said he was just there because it was a manpower pool. He wasn't there as an intelligence agent. He was there as a warm body because they were short on men. And again, what does that mean? If anybody out there is confused, because Vince, I don't get it. What was Glenn Bennett and Howard Norton? What does that mean, Vince? Please explain what you're trying to get to. What I'm trying to get at is if Oswald acted alone, there was no conspiracy. It's all coincidence. Why were intelligence agents there in Dallas and on the Texas Strip in general? Why were they lying under oath and saying they weren't there later on? Talking about Glenn Bennett. Why is Howard Norton a ghost, a phantom, until the late 90s when the ship report comes out and mentions him, and then I have his colleagues saying, oh, that's Howard K. Norton. Yeah, he was the first technician in the intelligence division. What the heck is he doing there? If Oswald acted alone, there's no... Oh, and ostensibly, there was no threats found in Texas. One of the great conundrums, everybody talks about Jackie's Red Roses, and there was no bubble top because, there was no rain and all that. Well, the other thing was... the whole thing was about the so-called manpower poll, and you talk about Glenn Bennett and everything. If Oswald acted alone, there was no conspiracy. Why were these guys there monitoring threats, and why was it covered up later on? Why were they there? Why were they lying about why they were there? I think that's one of the smoking guns right there.
Well, even if one knows about the other supposed threats, right? Like in Miami. Right. If anybody even looks at that, then by definition, if there was one in Miami, how did Oswald do both by himself? So that would, by definition, I mean, even the official story, when you research things that they've admitted to, shows that there was, by definition, and I'm doing air quotes, a conspiracy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, break coming up. Don't go anywhere. Final segment with Vince coming up. Don't miss it. Back in a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Final segment, but not of tonight's broadcast, just of hour 2, because remember, tonight is a special 3-hour broadcast, so I will be around from midnight to 1 o'clock, so do not tune out and do not go anywhere. You're going to be hanging out with me. Okay. So, Vince, before we get into anything else, because there's a bunch of other things I want to cover really quick in the last segment I have here, I want you to plug your coming book again. And every time you come on, up until the time you actually release, the book is released, I should say, I want you to plug it a couple times. That way it gets in people's heads and they get ready and prepped to purchase the book. So, title and where they're going to be able to purchase it when it comes out. Or if they can pre-order it, and that's a possibility, let them know that too.
Okay, great. Thanks, Popeye. Yeah, the book's titled Survivor's Guilt, The Secret Service, and the Failure to Protect the President. Once again, that's Survivor's Guilt, The Secret Service, and the Failure to Protect the President. It's a tremendously researched book. If I do say so myself, I interviewed 80-plus former agents and surviving family members, as well as White House aides. It's their actual testimony, so to speak, what they actually said. It's tremendously documented. It's got like 1,500 footnotes. I mean, it's basically an indictment of the Secret Service. However, I always tell people that I'm a great admirer of the agency, and 90% of these guys are quote-unquote squeaky clean. We only talk about a handful of quote-unquote dirty agents, either gross negligence or worse, that made this assassination happen, and go from there. And the great thing about this book coming out in the fall, it's going to be by Trying Day. The Trying is also, come out with Judith Baker's book and Don Adams and St. John Hunt, E. Howard Hunt's son. Okay, it's going to be the perfect counter to the Kennedy Detail movie. You know about the book, The Kennedy Detail by Gerald Blaine. Well, he's coming out with a motion picture in the fall. So this is going to be the perfect antidote to that propaganda. I got what Gerald Blaine actually told me years before his book was even a thought. I have their actual correspondence and what they said to me. I mean, it is what it is. Don't kill the messenger by delivering the bad news of what they espouse that goes against official history. And like I said, it's the perfect counter to his book and film, and it's going to be coming out Trying Day in the fall. And Appreciate the plug. Hey, we were talking off air, Popeye. If you want to get a little bit about what I think, means motive and opportunity. Some people out there would say, Vince, what would be the motive for some of these agents to do what looks like action through inaction? Why would they do this? And I think part of it for some of these agents was JFK's private life. There's several agents that admitted to Seymour Hersh back in the late 90s and to myself, okay, that they were angry at President Kennedy for his moral transgressions. Keep in mind here in the year 2013, we've come a long way, for lack of, for better or for worse, with, Jerry Springer, everything's open on the internet, celebrity scandals, everybody yawns now. But back in the 50s and 60s, early 60s, it was a different culture, a different world. Everything's the context of the time. And the bottom line, it is what it is. Several agents are vocal in their anger over President Kennedy's private life. And two of them really stick out. Tim McIntyre was in Dallas in the fall car. And he's sitting there on camera on the Peter Jennings special, 1997, Dangerous World, based on Seymour Hersh's book. He's saying, prostitution, that's illegal. And we are procurers of prostitutes for the president. I was disillusioned, angry by what I saw. And he's there to protect Kennedy in Dallas, okay? It gets even worse.
Yeah, well, I hope he doesn't want to protect President Obama, because then all of his fellow Secret Service agents will be procuring prostitutes. Talk about...
Columbia earlier last year. What amazing...
Well, you know what I'm saying? Talk about a jump in... it goes to show your point, this jump in society in 50 years. But go on, I didn't mean to sidetrack you, Vince.
Oh, no, very good salient point. Very good digression in that case. Yeah, but the video footage I showed in my 5-minute or so appearance on the minute Kill Kennedy that I popularized. Obviously, I didn't make the video. I popularized it because I brought to people's attention in the early 90s the WFA footage infamously on YouTube in various forms, where you see them leaving Love Field's black and white video, and you see an agent turn out to be Don Lawton. It's not Henry Rivka, it's Don Lawton. And he raises his arm several times in seeming disgust. Well, who's the agent? Who's recalling him? It's shift leader Emory Roberts. You say, okay, Vince, you gave me the name of the agent, so what? It's Emory Roberts. It could be Joe Blow. What's that mean to me? Well, it turns out in the late 90s, we discover that Emory Roberts was very concerned and talked all the time about President Kennedy's private life. He was very concerned about it, as Tim McIntyre admitted to Seymour Hersh. Oh, that's the guy who was in control of the agent of the fall car. He's all concerned about JFK's private life, and he calls an agent at Love Field, orders the agents not to move when the shooting begins. Oh, okay, what happened to Emory Roberts at the assassination? Oh, let's see. He usurped his authority, the authority of Roy Kellerman. He said, you stay with Kennedy, I'm going to Johnson, and just took the agents and went right to Johnson. And when Kennedy was still technically president and Roy Kellerman's your boss, and you just override them, it's much worse, much worse. He ends up at the same time, this is very obscure, most people don't even know about this, the same time he's a Secret Service agent, he's acting as appointment secretary to Johnson. Johnson thought very highly of Roberts. Again, this is obscure information, okay? But you can find this online. It's in LBJ Library transcripts in December 1968 when he's basically giving his little farewell to the Secret Service. LBJ says, Emory Roberts, who says good morning to me, says hi to me every morning and says goodbye to me every night, the dearest of all. Oh, really? So you're that chummy with this agent who was concerned about JFK's private life and ordered the men not to move and recall an agent Love Field. He's also working as appointment secretary at the same time he's an agent. You talk about a conflict of interest. That's a no-no. That doesn't happen. That's what the damn evidence. It's a murder agent. They scratch your heads. And that makes no sense. You're working for the Treasury Department. You don't go serve. You're apolitical. You're not Republican, you're not Democrat, you're totally detached from politics. It doesn't matter if he's a Martian. You're there to protect the man, you're not there to be his appointment secretary, his buddy. And who benefits? Emory Roberts goes on to be an inspector, dies in 1973 of a heart attack in the Washington Post. This is all fact. This is like, oh, Vince, you exaggerating this stuff, you making this up for a bit.
I'm going to pause you there for a second. I have a homework assignment for anybody that wants to do this. It's not like a random homework assignment, but anybody that wants to take this up, that hears this in the archives or whatever, anybody that has and has studied the JFK assassination, go look into it. Take as much time as you have to. and then shoot me an email with it when you're done. I would love for somebody to compile a list of all the people connected to the assassination, whether it be somebody that was involved, that was close to him just in his cabinet or whatever, or Secret Service or whatever. How many people around him have died of heart attacks or car accidents or mysterious deaths? Not witnesses, any of that stuff, not people connected to Oswald, not the usual people you would expect in a conspiracy to be killed off and cleaned up afterwards. No. I mean, look around like his cabinet and people in the Secret Service, and somebody compile a list of how many people had suddenly dropped dead of heart attacks afterwards. And for real, I would be interested in just wondering. I mean, I don't have the time to do it, but it just, if somebody wants to take it up as a side project, feel free to hop on it. I would probably venture a guess it'll be over 5 or 6 people at least that will suffer mysterious heart attacks and deaths, like dropping dead like that. And I'm talking perfectly healthy.
Emory Roberts spoke to no one in officialdom. Now, obviously, Tom Shipman didn't live to see the assassination the month before. Emory Roberts spoke to nobody other than William Manchester, and Manchester's notes are under seal, and we don't know specifically what he told Manchester. He did not testify before the Warren Commission, died in 1973 of a heart attack, 10 years later. But if you talk about who benefits, again, he was LBJ's old buddy. I guess his exact quote. He said, LBJ said that Emory Roberts greets me every morning and tells me goodbye every night, which makes that quote even more amazing. LBJ said almost the exact thing, word for word, about Bobby Baker, his protege. Greets me every morning and tells me goodbye every night. That's amazing that those two were held in that esteem by LBJ. A JFK Secret Service agent, ostensibly. And again, what the hell is he doing being a... You can look this up online. Talk about that Google search. Go there and put Emory Robertson. You'll find articles from 65 to 67. He's mentioning, in fact, he was even awarded a high award from LBJ. He was given a medal for outstanding service, improving communication services to the public in 1968. What is Emory Roberts doing? So there you go. Who benefits? What happened, Vince? Why would he do this? All it takes is a few agents to be angry at Kennedy for his morals and whatnot, to let it happen through inaction. And some of these guys did benefit. They rose in the service. You got rewards of tremendous pensions and benefits, and, that's enough to cover people up, worried about their family, worried about any kind of pitfalls to life and limb, and there you go. And
well, they're using almost that same angle to assassinate his character now, because if you notice all these shows that come out about the Kennedys, it's always he was a dirty bastard, he slept around, his personal, his whatever he did on the side. And look, let's get something straight, ladies and gentlemen. The President of the United States is not some superhero. One of the biggest reasons people have such an issue when one of them does something wrong, like, sleep with somebody other than his wife, which happens a lot. I'm not saying it's good, but it happens a lot, both men and women, okay? So he cheats on his wife, and suddenly, oh my God, he's fallible, he's oh my God, he's got human characteristics. He's not a superhero. Well, he really isn't. The job, it's just a job that they do. It's not the presidency is more like a vehicle that they sit in, and he's just the driver of that vehicle for that period of time. I mean, it's really not, you know what I mean? They're not, but see, they get this personification of, it's like this superhero archetype. And that's what ends up, people, they project that on. Well, I don't want to get too far off, but that's basically what it is. Okay. And I don't want to get too sidetracked, but, people look at if Kennedy, let's say he slept there. I mean, he did sleep around. So let's say he had sex with 2, 3, 4, 5 different women other than Jackie. How different is that than Bill Clinton? But people love Bill Clinton. He's the affable, moron ex-president, I guess you could say. Whatever. Women love him. Oh, he's still sexy. Bill can park his boots under my bed. Yeah,
and not only that, you got FDR. The vaunted FDR is considered one of, if not the greatest president of all time. He had an affair, at least one infamous affair he had, and that's what Eleanor Roosevelt literally stopped sleeping with FDR, and they had a cold distance, a respect for each other, but their marriage was never the same because of his affair. And Eisenhower had an affair during World War II when he was, a 4-star general at the time. Harding had an infamous affair literally in the Oval Office. I mean, we know Thomas Jefferson fathered,
Right, so
the black slave. And
so what's the difference? And I'm not justifying it. I'm not trying to say who cares. But the point is, why focus on Kennedy and none of these other people? Well, because it's a character assassination. See, blowing his brains out all over Dealey Plaza, that wasn't good enough for them. Because this won't, his beliefs or what he was trying to do at the time, and I'm not saying that everything Kennedy did in the past was perfect. I think, as his time, from what I've seen and what I've researched, his time in the presidency, he was changing as a human being, as an individual, and that started to change his ideals. And that's when he started to, hit the brakes and go into reverse on a lot of things and set a different course on others. And they didn't like that. They could no longer control him with whatever painkillers they had him on for his back and the other issues he had. I think he had Addison's disease or something like that, if I remember correctly.
You're right. Oh, no, they do. Even his own marriage, his infidelity stopped dramatically when Baby Patrick died in August. So the last several months of his life, the same agents that admitted their anger, even conceded that after Patrick, he never saw Jack and him closer. They held hands all the time. And even in Mimi Alford's book, that intern from last year, she even conceded that's when everything stopped. So even his so-called infidelities were changing. Like, he was changing his private morals. So not only, I think he was a good man, he was a flawed man. So was Martin Luther King. We know he slept around. At the end of the day, so what? It's about the good of the man.
You know what? We're all human beings. Gandhi was a flawed human being too. Right. Everybody was. We're all flawed human beings, and that's one of the problems. People put these presidents and these people like that up on this pedestal, and then because the powers that shouldn't be know that that's not really how things operate, but that's this myth, this fake idea. They can control the fake idea and how they attack it and how they present it. Now, because they couldn't kill the ideas and some of the things that JFK was pushing forward, and they can't kill people looking into it and questioning his death, and then why would they kill him, and then that leads down other paths, right? They can't control that anymore. So now, and all the other stuff, eventually the truth's going to come out. They know that they can't stop it forever. So what's better? Well, then you control the narrative, right? So now the narrative goes from, well, the government didn't kill him to, and I'm willing to bet that I would say, and maybe longer, maybe shorter, but sometime within the next 10 years, and I'm waiting to see what they do going up to the 50th, but I'm going to say by the time the 60th anniversary rolls around, I'm willing to bet that the narrative will be, at least from the mainstream, if things don't change in a positive way at all, and it stays on the same track, I'm willing to bet in the next 10 years the narrative will be more of Kennedy was a scumbag, and yeah, you know what, maybe the government did kill him, but at the end of the day it was better for national security because the guy was a piece of crap and look what he was doing, and he was a commie bastard, and he was this and he was that, and because that's what I see being pumped out now. Now, it's not on such a hardcore level as that in your face unless you understand the particulars of it. But when you understand it and you watch like these mini-series, like the one that they did about the Kennedys, where the Kennedy family got pissed off about it and they weren't supposed to air it or whatever. I think it was on Netflix or whatever friggin' network had it up. My wife and I watched it because I wanted to see and I took notes. The acting was well done, whatever. There were a lot of things like Mary Meyer, that and Cord Meyer and stuff. There were real people. There were real names thrown in there, but the demonization of how much of a philandering turd that they made him out to be, it was disgusting. I was like, wow, dude. They're totally going to assassinate his character because assassinating the man himself wasn't good enough, so now they have to go after his character.
Right. In fact, I remember, it's funny, the whole goal is if you don't care about the victim, what they do even like in rape trials and famous trials now, they turn it on the victim, so it makes you like care less about the tragedy and circumstances. Well, this guy wasn't all that great after all, so it makes you stop questioning that, and that's part of the goal there too. I even see it online with just random people. They'll do it with Clinton too. And every once in a while, you'll get a pocket of people who say, yeah, he screwed around. That would have been worse than Watergate if he would have had a second term. Oh, maybe it's better. I hate to say it, but maybe we were spared all that. Camelot lives because he died. It's horrible, but you see a little thing. And so this crap literature comes out. That's what it succeeded in, because it's like they killed him, and he realized there's a lot of people that have a concern and admiration for Kennedy. They made him a martyr. They made him much larger than life. So even though they took him physically, a tremendous backfire on what it did as far as his ideals and how he's put on the pedestal now is amazing. I mean, he definitely did some good things, but boy, he's like deified, and a lot of it had to do with his untimely death.
Of course, he would. I don't think he would have been I don't think he would have been put up on the pedestal he was, even regardless whatever change he made, right? Because they could have just the next president coming in after him could have been a dick and then just undone everything. So,
right.
It would. I mean, not that an LBJ. Who knows? It would have been LBJ. It could have been Nixon. It could have been whoever they put in there. Even if Kennedy got another 4 years in there, and he changed things, he did things. Who knows who would have come in and afterwards and tried to change things around? So I think if they had left him alone, he would not have become the icon that he's become today. And now, I believe, at least from what I could see, they realize that, and now they've got to assassinate his character. Hence, they start talking about all the affairs he had. And at the end of the day, I really don't give a crap who he slept with, okay? That's regardless of it matters not to me at all. I mean, honestly, it's none of my business. That's between him and his wife. Okay,
right.
I care about him handling the country. It's focusing on minutia crap like that, and people, oh my God, can you believe he slept around? Well, I'm not really worried about that. I'm worried about war. I'm worried about fixing things inside the country, managing managing the company properly, managing the whatever properly, the country, whatever you want to consider it. If you want to look at it, however way you want to look at it, his job is to be the manager. That's what his job is, and I want him to be able to do his job. I don't care if he has to bang 3 chicks to do the job correctly and prevent World War III. So be it. And women are going to get mad at me for that. Look, I'm all about fidelity, whatever. But honestly, that's between him and his wife. That's none of our business. It really isn't any of our business. And it's just used. It's a distraction, and it's used to because they'd rather get people to go, oh my God, well, Jack was a scumbag, Popeye, he was cheating on poor Jackie, so maybe he kind of deserved what he got, because you know how women are, especially if, and I'm not saying but you know how if a woman's been jilted by a guy, that's what they're reaching for, the appeal to emotion. Well, haven't you been jilted by a man before? Don't you feel that maybe Jack kind of deserved it? And I know that people might think that's a stretch, but that's what they're going for. That's why
it's more like a subliminal thing.
Yeah, exactly. They're not saying it outright to you, but it's what they put in the plots of these stories and stuff. So, I mean, it is real. It's going on, and there's no reason to deny it. It is what it is. We got a little less than 2 minutes left, Vince, and I want you to plug whatever you want to plug. In fact, I want you to plug your book one more time. The title, if you have the active title again, and where I guess Shrine Day or whatever else you want to plug really quick.
Yeah, I just want to tell everybody real quick, Popeye, thank you for the opportunity again. My book is called Survivor's Guilt, The Secret Service and the Failure to Protect the President. It's coming out in the fall. It's the perfect antidote to Gerald Blaine's Kennedy Detail book and movie. It's also coming out at the same time. And the other side stories are trying to make JFK out to be, this reckless, had it coming, blame the victim crapple that isn't true, and that's what my book does. It's the perfect counter to all that. Also, check me out on YouTube. Just Google my name, Vince Palamara, Palamara. My blog and my YouTube channel, I have a lot of good audio-visual things on there, and appreciate the opportunity, and stay tuned for more and up in the future, and book come out in the fall. 50th anniversary is going to be pretty huge. Yep.
It is going to be huge.
Thanks, everybody.
And we're going to be, Vince, you'll be back again soon, because we're about halfway through the month here, almost, somewhat already. We're at least maybe a quarter way into the month. So you'll be back in a few weeks next month when we do the next segment on JFK. Don't go anywhere, Vince. Hang on. I'll say goodbye to you off air. Ladies and gentlemen, again, do not leave. Hour number 3 coming up. We're going to be going strong till 1 a.m., so stick with me. We'll be back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.